animals of the jungle, the trees, the grass, and even a volcano all pulsed to the rhythm of the band. While the sequence was eventually dropped, Walt loved it. Admittingly, it does sound promising. In 1943, in the midst of World War II, artist James Bodrero tried to revive Walt's interest in a film that would mix the best of Fantasia with popular music. His memorandum, titled Swing Fantasia, suggested a movie that, for cost reasons, would be a combination of live action and animation. A picture of this sort could trace the development of swing from the earliest days of ragtime. An animated sequence for an opening, using conga drums beating out the original tempo, could lead into Negro stevedores loading cotton, side wheel steamers, etc., with the music of their working songs finally coalescing on St. Louis blues. From there on, we could have 5 or 6 tunes typical of jazz basic changes, using such bands as Whiteman, Goodman, Louis Armstrong, T. Dorsey, Harry James, and Duke Ellington. Though Swing Fantasia did not see the light of day, the idea of using popular music did not die. The following year, 2 quote-unquote package features were put into production by the studio, Swing Street and Courier and Ives. The 2 projects were intertwined, with planned sequences often moving from one movie to the other in the various memos. The overall idea consisted of stringing individual musical cartoons together with simple transitions. For the Swing Street transitions, Sylvia Holland worked on the idea that involved the Greek muses. For Courier and Ives, storyman Dick Humer worked on several treatments that used Nathaniel Courier and James Merritt Ives' print shop as an overall background. The camera would have focused on the Courier and Ives etchings that would have come to life as animated sequences through cross dissolves, from Once Upon a Winter Time to Casey at the Bat. When the idea for those planned transitions was dropped, the 2 movies became simple collections of shorts. Swing Street was renamed Make My Music, released in 1946, and Courier and Ives became Melody Time, released in 1948. Both projects made copious use of popular and classical music, from Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf to the Andrews Sisters, or even a swing jazz variation of Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee, played by Freddie Martin and his orchestra, with Jack Fina on the piano. Music everywhere. While the artists were hard at work on those 2 package features, storyman Bill Walsh suggested yet another musical idea, a combination of live-action and animation feature titled A Night at the Ballet. Among the most interesting concepts he included in his memo were a dream ballet designed by Salvador Dali and a dance number between Fred Astaire and Mickey Mouse, a year before Gene Kelly appeared in the MGM movie Anchors Aweigh with the mouse Jerry from Tom and Jerry. Walsh also suggested that, with the liberation of Europe, it might be possible to obtain the great Nijinsky. He could say a few words or show a special ballet step to Donald. Music from all around the world filled the Disney studio in those years. The Latin feature Saludos Amigos from 1943 and The Three Caballeros from 1945 were highly musical ventures, making full use of Latin American popular music. Had it been released, their 3rd movie in this planned trilogy, Carnival, would have followed along the same lines. In 1946, Disney's foreign dubbing specialist, Jack Cutting, suggested that artist Mary Blair be sent to France to explore the possibility of developing a similar picture centering on French music. A year later, Cutting sent a memo to Walt elaborating on this idea. Why not consider seriously the possibility of starting a Saludos-like project in France this coming summer? The French Exchange Office would permit the use of Disney-blocked funds for any and all expenses involved, while in France, you would have the opportunity to look into Le Gaimard setup, the French studio founded by Paul Grimaud and André Sarraute. you might consider the use of the studio and its facilities to prepare preliminary materials for a saludos about the continent. But by 1947, Walt was no longer interested in producing package features, except the ones that were still in production. And by that time, they started to recover a little financially. The musical years ended up becoming a beautiful but commercially challenging parentheses in the history of the studio. The war and the labor unrest were partly to blame, but at the end of the day, Fantasia was too ambitious a project for its time, and the package features were too limited in scope and appeal. The musical era would eventually give way to a new golden age of Disney animation. Success returned to the studio in the 1950s when full-length narrative movies like Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Lady and the Tramp, which had all been in development before World War II, were finally released. Despite the commercial failures, Disney's musical years were an era of unbridled creativity and experimentation. The features released in those years were at times disappointing, but the pre-production designs were more often than not masterpieces. The first golden age of animation may have been older, but the golden age of Disney's concept artists wasn't. And in the next video, we will finally get into them.